People ask me all the time, Charlie, what is the secret to financial security? How do you sleep soundly at night knowing you'll never run out of money? And you know what I tell them? I tell them about a conversation I had with my father when I was 10 years old, during the Great Depression in our kitchen in Omaha, Nebraska. That single conversation, has guided every financial decision I've made for the past 89 years. Let me tell you what happened. It was probably 1934, maybe 35. Times were incredibly tough. My father owned a small grocery store, and every day was a struggle to keep the doors open. People didn't have money. Credit was tight, but somehow we were getting by. And I remember one evening I must have been pestering my father about something I wanted. I can even remember what it was now. Some toy, maybe some candy, something a 10-year-old boy thinks is absolutely essential to his happiness. And my father, instead of just saying no, which he could have done, he sat me down at our kitchen table. I remember that table so clearly, worn wood, scratches and water rings from years of use. And he said something that changed my entire understanding of money and wealth. He said, "Charlie, let me explain something to you. Our store, it is like a goose that lays golden eggs. Now, I am 10 years old, so I am thinking about fairy tales, Jack and the Beanstalk, that kind of thing." But he continued, he said, "Every month if we run the store well, if we serve our customers and manage our inventory and keep our costs down, the store produces profit. That profit, son, those are the golden eggs. We can use those eggs to feed our family, to pay for the things we need, to live our lives. But the store itself, the goose, we can never consume that. Because if we kill the goose to eat it today, we won't have any more eggs tomorrow, or ever again." That analogy, it crystallized something in my young mind, something fundamental about the nature of wealth and capital and security. Wealth isn't the thing itself. Wealth is what the thing produces. The store wasn't our wealth. The profits from the store were our wealth. And protecting the source of those profits, keeping that goose alive and healthy, that was more important than any short-term want or need. I carried that lesson with me through my entire life, through law school, through starting my investment partnership, through building Berkshire Hathaway with Warren. And you know what? That simple principle, that one idea my father taught me in our kitchen during the Depression, it is the reason I can sit here at 99 years old and know with absolute certainty that I will never run out of money. Not because I have a lot of money, but because I structured my entire financial life around living on the eggs and never, ever touching the goose. Now, here's what breaks my heart. I've watched thousands of people over my lifetime, smart people, really intelligent people, successful in their careers, and 98% of them get this completely wrong, completely backwards. They spend 40 years building up their goose, accumulating capital, saving money, and then the moment they retire, they start eating the goose, slowly, yes. With sophisticated mathematical formulas, yes, but they still killing the goose, and they spend the rest of their lives worried sick about when the goose will be gone and the eggs will stop coming. Let me tell you about two people I knew. I am going to call them Jack and Diane because those aren't their real names, but their story is absolutely real. Both of them retired in 2007. Remember 2007, right before the financial crisis? Both of them had worked hard their entire lives. Both of them had saved diligently. Both of them had exactly the same amount of money when they retired, $750,000, mid-60s, looking forward to a comfortable retirement, two identical starting points. Jack did what his financial advisor told him to do, what every mainstream financial advisor in America tells people to do. He put his $750,000 into a target date retirement fund. You know, these funds, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, standard allocation, diversified professional management, all the things the industry says you need. And he planned to follow the 4% rule, withdraw 4% the first year. That is $30,000. Then adjust for inflation every year after that. The research says it should last 30 years. They told him seemed safe, seemed reasonable. That is what the experts recommended. Diane did something different. She came to me for advice. We'd known each other through business connections, and I told her about my father, Goose and Golden Eggs. I told her the principle I've followed my entire life. Never live off your principal. Only live off what your assets produce. And she understood it immediately. So instead of building a portfolio designed to be slowly liquidated, she built an income engine. She took that same $750,000 and structured it completely differently. $300,000 went into dividend, paying stocks, not growth stocks, not the hot tech companies. Everyone was chasing boring companies. Companies like Procter & Gamble that make soap and toothpaste, Johnson & Johnson that makes Band-Aids and baby powder, Coca-Cola that sells sugar water. Companies that had paid dividends for decades and raised those dividends every single year. These stocks were yielding about 4% in dividends. That is $12,000 a year from that portion. Another $200,000 went into bonds and preferred stocks from strong companies, high quality stuff, not junk, not reaching for yield, just solid, predictable interest payments, yielding about 5%. That is $10,000 a year. $150,000 went into a real estate investment trust that owned apartment buildings and shopping centers, things that generate rent month after month, yielding about 6%. That is $9,000 a year. And she put the final $100,000 into an immediate fixed annuity from a highly rated insurance company, guaranteed to pay her for life. About 7%, so $7,000 a year. You add that up, her portfolio was generating about $38,000 in annual income, a little more than 5% overall yield. That income came from dividends, from interest, from rents, from guaranteed payments. She didn't have to sell anything to generate that income. The goose was laying eggs. She was just collecting them. Now watch what happened. 2008 hit, the financial crisis. The worst financial crisis since the depression my father lived through. Jack's portfolio, the conventional one. It got cut almost in half. From $750,000 down to about $450,000. Devastating. Absolutely devastating. But Jack still needed his $30,000 to live on. He had bills to pay, he had expenses. So he had to sell stocks to generate cash. Sell at the bottom, sell at the absolute worst time. Lock in his losses by 2010, even though the market had started recovering. Jack's portfolio was down to $380,000. Why? Because he sold so much during the crash. He'd eaten so much of his goose that even when conditions improved, he didn't have enough left to benefit from the recovery. And you know what he did then? He panicked. He moved everything to bonds and cash. Can he afford another crash? He told me. So he locked in his losses permanently and missed the entire recovery. Missed one of the greatest bull markets in history today. Jack is 78 years old. His portfolio is down to about $290,000. He is terrified, absolutely terrified. He has cut his spending dramatically. Doesn't he travel anymore? Doesn't he help his grandchildren with college like he planned? Lies awake at night doing math in his head, calculating how many more years his money will last. The stress is destroying him. I can see it in his face when I see him. He looks older than me, and I am 20 years older than he is. Diane, completely different story. Her portfolio also dropped in 2008. On paper, it fell from $750,000 to about $500,000. Brutal scare. She called me, worried, but I asked her one question. Diane, how much income did you receive last month? She checked. Her dividend checks came through. Procter & Gamble paid. Actually raised their dividend. Johnson & Johnson paid. Raised their dividend too. Her bond interest came through. Her rental income came through. Her annuity payment came through. Every single dollar she expected to receive, she received. The market value of her portfolio had fallen. Yes, but her income, the thing she was actually living on, barely changed at all. She didn't have to sell a single share. Not one. She just kept collecting her income and paying her bills and living her life. And you know what she did with the income she didn't need? She reinvested it, bought more shares of those Dividend, paying companies at depressed prices, which generated even more income going forward. By 2010, while Jack was panicking and selling, Diane was calm. Her income had actually grown to about $40,000 because of dividend increases and reinvestment. The companies she owned, they kept doing business, kept making products, kept serving customers, kept generating profits, and they shared those profits with her through dividends. The goose kept laying eggs, crisis or no crisis. Today, Diane is 78 years old, same as Jack. Her portfolio is worth about $920,000, more than she started with, and it is generating $48,000 in annual income, $48,000 every year without touching the principal. She has never sold a share out of necessity. Not once in 15 years. She literally cannot outlive her money because she is only living on what it produces, not on the capital itself. She sleeps soundly. She is generous with her family. She travels. She donates to causes she cares about, and she never, ever worries about running out of money. Same starting point, same amount of capital, same time period, same market conditions, completely different outcomes. And the only difference was understanding the Goose and Golden Eggs principle. You know, Warren and I, we V-structured Berkshire Hathaway around this same principle. When we buy a business, we not buying it to flip it. We not buying it to sell it in 5 years for a profit. We buying it to own it forever and collect the earnings it produces. See S. Candy, we bought that in 1972, paid $25 million. People thought we overpaid, way too much, they said. But you know what we saw? We saw an income-generating machine. That business was producing about $4 million in free cash flow. Cash we could take out without harming the business. Cash we could use to buy other businesses. And over the next 50 years, see S. Candy generated over $2 billion in cash for Berkshire. $2 billion from a $25 million investment. And you know what? The business is still there, still operating, still selling chocolates, still generating cash. We never killed that goose. We just kept collecting the eggs year after year and using those eggs to buy more geese. That is how compound interest actually works in real life. That is how wealth actually builds. Now, let me tell you how to actually implement this principle in your own life, because understanding it intellectually is one thing, applying it is another. And most people, they don't know where to start. They've been taught their entire lives to think in terms of account balances, net worth, how much they have saved, all the wrong metrics, the wrong framework entirely. First thing you need to do, and this is crucial, calculate what you actually need to live on. Not what you think you need, not what your pre-retirement income was, what you actually need for essential expenses. And I mean essential housing costs, property taxes if you own, rent if you don't, insurance, utilities, food, real food for your table, not restaurants every night, healthcare and insurance premiums, transportation. That is it. That is your essential baseline. Everything else, all the extras, travel and entertainment and gifts and helping family and charitable giving. Those come from excess income after your essentials are covered. And here is what most people discover when they actually do this exercise honestly. Their essential expenses are 30 to 50% less than their working years. Think about it. No commuting costs, no expensive work wardrobe, no saving for retirement because you are already there. Often your mortgage is paid off. Your kids are independent. Your actual essential expenses are much lower than you think. For most people I know, real essential annual expenses are somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000, maybe $60,000 if you are in an expensive coastal city, but rarely more. Now, figure out your guaranteed income, Social Security pension, if you are fortunate enough to have one, any rental income from property you already own, part-time work if you enjoy working. Add those up, then subtract that guaranteed income from your essential expenses. That gap, that difference. That is what your investment portfolio needs to generate in income. Not what it needs to be worth, what it needs to produce. So let us say your essentials are $45,000 a year. Your Social Security is $25,000. Your gap is $20,000. That is what your portfolio needs to generate in reliable annual income. Now here is where most people's minds break, because they've been trained wrong. They think, well, if I need $20,000 a year and I am following the 4% rule, I need $500,000. But that is the wrong framework entirely. That is thinking about depleting capital. The right question is, if I need $20,000 in annual income and I can structure a portfolio to yield 5% safely and reliably, how much capital do I need? The answer is $400,000. 400,000 generating 5% gives you 20,000 in annual income forever. You are not depleting anything. You are just collecting what it produces. Combined with your Social Security, you've covered your essentials, and you never run out because you are never consuming the goose. Now, how do you actually build a portfolio that generates 5% safely? This is where you have to think completely differently than conventional investing. You are not trying to maximize growth. You are not trying to beat the market. You are trying to generate safe, reliable, growing income. And those are very different objectives. ID put about 30% in high-quality dividend. Paying stocks. And when I say high quality, I mean boring. I mean companies that make products people need every single day. Procter & Gamble makes Tide and Crest and Pampers. Johnson & Johnson makes Band. AIDS and Tylenol and baby shampoo. Coca-Cola makes beverages. 3M makes Post. It notes and industrial products. These companies, they've paid dividends for over 50 years. They've raised those dividends every year for over 25 years. Through recessions, through market crashes, through everything, they yield 3 to 5%. And more importantly, they raise those dividends typically faster than inflation. Another 25% should go into bonds and fixed income. High-quality corporate bonds from strong companies. Treasury securities, bond funds. Not junk bonds, not reaching for yield. Just boring, predictable interest payments. 4 to 6% yields. Nothing exciting, nothing risky, just reliable income. Put another 20% in real estate investment trusts. Not speculative REITs, not development companies. REITs that own stable income producing properties. Apartment buildings, warehouses, retail centers, things that generate rent month after month. These typically yield 5 to 7% in dividends. 15% in preferred stocks from strong companies. These are kind of a hybrid between stocks and bonds. They pay fixed dividends, usually 5 to 7%. They are less volatile than common stocks, and they have priority over common stock for dividend payments. And maybe 10% in a simple, no-load immediate fixed annuity from a highly rated insurance company. I know annuities get a bad reputation, and most annuities are garbage designed to generate commissions for salespeople. But a simple immediate fixed annuity is just insurance against living too long. You are buying an income floor you can never outlive. You transfer the longevity risk to an insurance company. That kind of portfolio structured properly with quality holdings can reliably generate 5% or more in annual income. And here is the beautiful part. You never have to sell anything. You just collect the dividends, the interest, the distributions. They show up in your account month after month, year after year. For as long as you live, the principle, the goose, it stays intact, keeps working, keeps producing. Now here is the absolute rule you must follow. And I mean absolute. You can spend every penny of your investment income, every dollar of those dividends and interest payments if you want to. But you can never, under any circumstances, touch the principal. Never. If your portfolio generates $45,000 in income and you only need $40,000, you can either spend that extra $5,000 on something fun or reinvest it to grow your future income, your choice. But if your portfolio generates $40,000 and you want to spend $50,000, you have exactly two choices. Reduce your spending to match your income or find additional income sources. Downsize your home to free up capital. What you absolutely cannot do, what you must never do, is withdraw principal. This rule is absolute. No exceptions. I don't care if there is an emergency. I don't care if there is an opportunity. I don't care if you really, really want something. The answer is no. You do not eat the goose. Because the moment you start, the moment you break that rule even once, you are on a path to depletion. And once you are on that path, it is almost impossible to get off. The psychology changes, you've broken the seal, and it becomes easier and easier to justify just a little more. Just this once. Just for this special thing. Let me tell you what happens psychologically when you commit to this rule and actually follow it, because this might be the most important benefit of all. Your entire relationship with money changes. Market crashes don't scare you anymore. I lived through 2008. I watched my net worth on paper decline by billions. Billions, and you know what? I slept fine. Why? Because my income didn't change. Berkshire's businesses kept operating, kept generating earnings. The dividends from our stocks kept coming in. My lifestyle, my security. None of it was threatened by market volatility. When you are living on income and the principal is untouchable, your account balance becomes almost irrelevant. It is just a number that goes up and down. You are not living off it. You stop making emotional decisions driven by fear. You stop panic selling during crashes. You stop chasing performance during bubbles. Because your security doesn't depend on market prices. It depends on the income your assets generate. And quality businesses keep generating income through almost any market condition. I've experienced this peace of mind personally for 70 years. And I've watched others adopt this approach and seen the transformation. People who were anxious and stressed become calm and confident. People who constantly check their portfolios 5 times a day stop checking entirely. They just look at their income deposits. As long as those keep coming in, everything's fine. The psychological value of this approach can be quantified, but it might be worth more than any financial return. Now, you might ask, if this principle is so powerful, why doesn't every financial advisor teach it? That is an excellent question. The answer is simple and cynical. There is no profit in it for them. The financial industry makes money from managing growing portfolios. They charge fees based on assets under management. Income focus might mean slower portfolio growth, which means slower fee growth. They profit from activity trading, rebalancing, buying and selling. But income investing is buy and hold. You buy quality dividend payers, and you never sell them. They sell complex products, structured notes and variable annuities and managed futures and all kinds of sophisticated things with high fees and fat commissions. But income investing is simple, boring, dividend stocks and bonds and REITs, no complexity, no big fees. They benefit from emotional client behavior. Because scared clients make bad decisions, and bad decisions generate activity, and activity generates commissions. But income investors who understand the Goose and Golden Eggs principle, they calm. They don't panic. They don't generate activity. An advisor who helps you structure a simple income portfolio that you never touch makes much less money than one who constantly trades your account, rebalances quarterly, sells you new products every year. I am not saying all advisors are bad or corrupt. I am saying the industry's incentives are not aligned with this approach. That is reality. That is why you need to educate yourself and seek out the rare advisors who truly understand income investing. Let me tell you one more thing that might be most important of all. This approach isn't just about providing for your own retirement. It is about creating generational wealth. When you never touch principal and only live on income, you create something that can last forever. You can pass it to your children. They can pass it to their children. This is how wealthy families actually stay wealthy across generations. They understand that wealth isn't money to spend. It is income generating assets to preserve and grow and pass on. I am giving away 99% of my wealth during my lifetime to charity. But for most families, leaving an intact income generating portfolio is one of the greatest gifts you can provide. Your children don't inherit a pile of cash that will eventually run out. They inherit an income engine, a goose that keeps laying eggs for them and their children. That is how you change your family tree permanently. That is how you create lasting security, not just for yourself, but for generations. I am 99 years old. I've been following this principle since I was a teenager, since my father explained it to me in our kitchen. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, from nearly 90 years of experience, it works. It is not complicated. It is not mysterious. It doesn't require brilliance. It just requires discipline. The discipline to live on the eggs and never touch the goose. The question is, are you willing to be part of the 2%? Because if you implement what I've shared, if you structure your finances around income generation and commit absolutely to never touching principal, I can virtually guarantee you, never worry about running out of money in retirement. You sleep soundly when markets crash. You make better decisions because they not driven by fear. And you probably end up wealthier than if you followed conventional advice, simply because you never make the emotional mistakes that destroy most retirement portfolios. The choice is yours. The principle is simple. The implementation is straightforward. All it requires is understanding the difference between the goose and the eggs and having the discipline to never eat the goose. Just like my father taught me when I was 10 years old, sitting at our kitchen table during the Great Depression. That lesson has served me for 89 years, and it will serve you just as well if you follow it.